Hey y'all, what is up everybody? What is up YouTube? Sparky Mark here, and I'm back to do another movie review of the Nightmare series. And this is the 7th installment, and it's called Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Possibly rather be coined as A Nightmare on Elm Street 7, New Nightmare. But always just simply called Nightmare though. Oh well, it is what it is. So it's a meta supernatural slasher film. And we got the director, Wes Craven, is back. And plus he wrote. And it was produced by Marion Madalena, if I said the name right, sorry if I butchered it. Patrick Lussier, who would later work with Dimension Films on a few other projects, along with Craven as well. Music by J. Peter Robinson. And it was released on October 14, 1994. Wow. And this was about a month before my friend's, one of my homies' 5th birthday that year. And I was 3 when this film came out, and another friend of mine was about 9 months old at the time. And yeah. But yeah, it was on a budget of $8 million, and unfortunately only made about $19.8 million. Considering coined as the lowest grossing of the Nightmare series. So yeah, but it received positive reviews from critics, and it was considered many the best of the Nightmare films and one of Craven's most enduring films. So yeah, that's how it is. And plus, we have our characters: Heather Langenkamp playing herself, Nancy Thompson, Robert Englund as himself, and he plays the entity / Freddy Krueger. And you got Miko Hughes, who you might know him from Kindergarten Cop. He was in following year in '95, he would be in Apollo 13. He was the autistic character named Simon Lynch in Mercury Rising with Bruce Willis, and he was that little kid in an episode of 90210. So if anybody knows that kid, you know who I'm talking about. And he plays Dylan Porter, in which, of course, he has to play Heather Langenkamp's son. And, of course, Chase Porter, who's the father of the child. And the son becomes mental health, whose mental health being is to deteriorate after his encounter with Freddy. Whoa. And plus you have the great John Saxon as himself, Donald Thompson. And you got some other characters. And let's not forget Wes Craven as himself. He wrote about himself. Wow. And Robert Shea as himself. He's in this film. And the producer, Marion, I can't even say her name. There she is. Sam Rubin and a few others. The receptionist, Newland, Clara Haro. Matt Winston, the son of the special effects artist Stan Winston, is in this, including who else is in there? Oh yeah, W. Earl Brown, who would later work with Wes in Scream 1. Lynn Shea as herself. Nick Corey, who plays himself, and he was Rod in the original Nightmare, and Tuesday Night as herself, and previously played Kristen in the 4th installment. And it's these two making appearances from the franchise in the funeral scene. They're silently there, but they're present. And here's the new version of Fred Krueger / Entity. And so yeah. And somehow and of course there involves an earthquake, and what does this earthquake got to do with something? Realizing that it opened the gateway or some kind. And of course, Fred Krueger is now more menacing. He's more evil, or he's more very, very aggressively angry. And he's ready to get on and have a little fun to enter the real world. But of course, in popular culture and during the story, Fred Krueger has become an iconic villain, that is, and he's popular to the fans. So yeah, very cool. But then the earthquake happens, which something unleashes it upon the earth or underneath the earth, unleashing something called the entity, Fred Krueger. Holy shit! And now her son is seeing Freddy, and nobody else sees it but him. And thinking that the child might be crazy, or maybe he's doing this or something. And of course, our heroine is now, who plays herself, is now becoming her character. And of course, she's been having stalking problems in both fiction and real life. And now this villain is back and has become the entity, aka Fred Krueger. And it's up to our heroine to save the child once and for all, to stop Freddy's menace once and for all. So yeah, amazing, right? In my own opinion, heck yeah, it was amazing. And it was great seeing the whole gang back, almost marking 10 years since the original came out in 1984. And now they're back in this one. And tell me, you young BUCKS's, you young bucks, have any of you seen this film? Go ahead and get your copy of the SED. It's worth it. Or stream it, if you will, before you buy it. But it's got some good special features. And with that, let's take a look at the disc and see the whole kit caboodle. Like now. Ooh, here we are. Here we are at last. The 7th installment of the Nightmare movies. You heard me. The 7th and final installment of the Nightmare movies. So yeah. Well, no chit chat. Let's slide the disc and see the whole accoutrements in it. Like now. Alrighty, y'all. Here is the menu for Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So yeah, here you have the chapter selections. It's about an hour 52 minutes. It's going to be putting about 122 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. How many chapters do we have here, y'all? Ooh, man, that's plenty of chapters. No, actually, it's 112 minutes. My bad. So yeah, and we have 29 chapters. Wow. We got some languages. English remastered, original theatrical English. You got the subtitles, same as before. And we got special features, audio commentary, Boiler Room Confessional, Freddy's Footnote, Becoming a Filmmaker, An Insane Trope, if I can't say, Problems with Sequels, Two Worlds, Welcome to Primetime Conclusion. In total, that's about. So, in total for this one is about 9 features. So, I'm just going to make it short and quick and snappy. So, let's go to. Alrighty, Boiler Room Confession, which is about 7 minutes and 33 seconds in length, with Mark Irwin, director of photography of Wes Craven's New Nightmare. You have Chuck Russell, director of Dream Warriors, Jack Shoulder of Freddy's Revenge, and you have Robert Englund. All of them talking about. Okay, first off, director of photography Mr. Irwin says that after 2 decades, Freddy has become more of a popular icon, how the character works, and only you don't acquire to get a intergalactic attack vessels, and you need your own engagement and your own mind. And of course, everyone has weaknesses. Human beings, from after working 12 to 14, 18-hour days, and of course fall asleep, and when the evil starts to come. And what happens when you fall asleep? Real nightmares start to happen, and God knows. So if he thinks Freddy is as a vessel, always be relevant. And Mr. Russell talks about Mr. Englund's timing, his convictions, making the character dark and making more frightening, or in respect. And the director has a lot of respect for his cast, but Mr. Englund was always a very mature theater actor, and he can handle that character. And it's one of those cases where they're fantastic to watch, the performers, or the talent of the performers and everything. And Mr. Shore talks about that there is something very eminent, that this power and the strength and the menace and superb. And Mr. Englund is a very superb actor. And it wasn't until screening the project and realized it was about the villain, him. And every time he shows up to watch it with the audience, they will all go crazy. And the first chapter in this is The Hook with Robert Englund, talking about he thinks Mr. Krueger very well after all these years because of the hook, a simple gimmick that Mr. Craven, his buddy, thought up all those years ago, that someone or something can violate your dream landscape, the subconscious. Someone can enter and affect you with fear, and private things you stored in there can also be exploited and turn them against you. And Mr. Englund thinks that it's just a simple hoax, that someone can get into your dream, and his reason that it lasted all these years. And now for Origins, a second one, Mr. Englund talks about that they live in a reality, and Wes borrowed that in telling the story of Fred Krueger, give it the villain a backstory, back there. And Wes researched in the LA Times, in the articles of LA Times, that some Cambodian refugees were dying, in fact, dying in their sleeps. And then there was Freddy Krueger. There was a character named Freddy Krueger at Wes Craven's school, who was a total bully to him, and I borrowed that from reality. And Mr. Craven was very smart, and he does a free fertile. Finding inspiration, Robert talks about that he had just seen Nosferatu with Klaus Kinski and Isabella Nagini, and he managed to get his hand into the frame every time when they're exploiting that with Freddy's claw glove, and it's comfortably, and you can get it all the frame at times. And he really watched how Mr. Kinski worked doing his hands, and he had wonderful art movements and everything. And he used the characterization of Mr. Kinski, and every time you get the single shot frame of him, and thrust his head, and he borrowed that a little bit from Mr. Kinski. And the other aspects, and all sometimes kind of plugged into, and sort of turn him on for it. And of course the Delusi, and of course when he was in the makeup chair, and they had a Delusi back in the day, back when he did the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Anybody before this, he'd been there before anybody got there. And he'd been on the makeup chair for like 2, maybe a 3 hour period, putting stuff on, and he maybe work like 10 a.m., maybe 11 a.m. in the morning, and in comes Johnny Depp and Heather Langenkamp. And it was a very hot summer, very hot, and of course being poked with this old brush, crushed glue by the artist David Miller, and getting flaps because of the prosthetics wouldn't stay on that long. And Makeup Girl has gifted Johnny Depp and Heather Langenkamp pink portable battery fans, keeping them cool. And he remembers just his attitude is, he says, "What the hell? What am I, chopped liver or something? You know? And here is hours of it's 100 degrees. You're covered in foam latex and a giant. What? Get me out of here. Why do they need that? They don't need that. They don't need to put pretty makeup on." And say, "Oh, Robert, you're a little tantrum." And that little mental tantrum was used throughout the film. This poor old man with all this crap on him. Punks. Getting spoiled, you know. And yeah, going to cool clubs and everything. Fun places. Freddy hates youth. Freddy hates young people. Freddy hates children. And he obliterates children. Where are children? They're the future that Freddy obliterates. And now Mr. England says becoming Freddy. He thinks that began that the Freddy scraping idea, and he was going to work, and in the script, and he thinks that it's sort of the strumming and sprinkling contributed that a bit and brought the posture, and obviously I was discovered because of the weight of the glove, and once they got him on makeup, less than 14-hour day. So they started getting snagged, and of course, in backstage mirrors, one of the backstage mirrors glanced and realized that one shoulder dropped, then the other, and it was like, where did he see that? Oh yeah, a gunslinger. So yeah, that's how the gunslinger posture of Freddy. Wow, it's rock and roll. Yeah, it's really a horror film made for fans. Every time he goes to conventions, new stuff of Freddy figures that look like Robert, new images and posters. It's real rock and roll, cool stuff. Makes him feel like a 14-year-old boy. And thus you're taking a lot of Viagra, a child killer burned by vigilante parents, and comes back in kind of purgatory because two wrongs don't make a right. Now the end of innocence. And he talks about that not enough old title Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, among things, every town has an Elm, as Freddy said in his voice says, every town has an Elm Street. And then Robert talks into his normal voice, but Elm Street, in the street in Dallas, Texas, where their, of course, beloved President Kennedy, was shot to death. And all that accounts was the loss of American innocence. And that means what little means. So yeah, very good enthusiasm with Mr. Anglin right there. And the second feature is called Freddy's Footnote, which is about 7 minutes and 48 seconds in length interview with Chuck Russell and Mark Irwin and Jack Shoulder and Robert Englund. And the first scene and the first chapter in this feature is called Challenging Scenes. Chuck Russell talks about one of the biggest surprises for him seeing the film again. Besides terrific ideas, his favorite one would be about the Dream Snake Freddy monster, full-scale Freddy Snake that swallows Patricia Arquette's character. And it had animatronics, facial expressions, Freddy's performances, and frankly, it was stunned, and it still plays very well. And the big full set pieces that were in, and it was the challenging of the scene was that the Snake Freddy gobbles Patricia Arquette's character, and the mechanism jaw, it had to be very safe. It had not harmed the actress or the performances, and it was all set up very well. And they didn't want to reshoot it, and very comfortably from the point of view for the actors to do a good performance and just pull the metal away and make them do the prosthetics well. And a few mechanisms put it up on her very good. And gotta give everyone credit that they did great jobs pulling that scene off. And Mark Irwin talks about the two kinds of scenes of that are challenging, the mechanical ones, and one is an example, the freeway. It had a gigantic stretch of road, a mile long, and the whole freeway, they had the whole freeway for themselves, massive light called the Museo light, if I'm not mistaken. What do you call, how do you spell that word? MUSCO light. And positioned half a mile and the entire freeway and more lights. The mechanics of that were somewhat daunting. And then you have Mr. Jack Shoulder saying, without a doubt, the most challenging thing to shoot the whole scene in the second film was in the abandoned steel mill, shot in Fontana, California. And it was huge, very huge structure, fantastic looking location it was, and shot there for 3 days. And they were up on the upper floor, 40 feet above ground, and it was very complicated to shoot. A lot of shots, pieces, stuff to do, a lot of effects were done. And it was also document on of the film, and making it was where Freddy gets out into the world, and now he finds an innocent of the teenage boy, which is all and he has to be weak, very frightened young man who is living in the house that doesn't know what went on in that house, and uses the kid. Obviously, we know the character is Jesse Walsh, using the kid as a portal to get out into the real world, and once and for all, and it happens. Now we see the Jesse starts fighting to get back out, and he pops right out of Jesse, and now Jesse's gone, but Jesse's still inside, part of him, and it was physically very hard, and physically, technically, the story wise, and and it was hard to make the ending, to sell the ending, to make it very believable and convincing. And the next one talks about favorite kills, and which Chuck Russell talks about. My two favorite kills probably is the Bradley Gregg with the Puppet Freddy. And yeah, and he thought it was great, and he shot it very terrific, and it was a very fantastic job he did, and was surreal. And he remembers he used to make puppets when those kind of puppets when he was a kid growing up, and it still gave him nightmares to this day. And that was the original idea that came from Mr. Russell. And Mr. Shoulder, the director of Nightmare 2, talks about that his favorite kill, that Freddy is the favorite kill. Jack's favorite kill. New Line was excited about it, shooting the final scene in the bus. And it was kind of a little dumb, but they felt like you had to shoot this scene to show that Freddy could still come back. The fact is that from a story POV, if somebody's dead and they are already come back, they can't keep coming back. And Robert Englund talks about that he thinks the fan favorites are line in the second film of Nightmare on Elm Street 2, "I'm your boyfriend now." They're like Freddy. Only time Freddy speaks about the claw, the glove, not being sacrilegious, but just a great testament of what Freddy thinks about this extension of evil. He goes, this is the line from the first movie. This is God. And of course, favorite scenes. And Jack Shoulder's favorite scene, in a lot of ways, his favorite scene is the whole coach scene, and where they're starting out, and he wanders around town through the rain and the gym, and then the coach gets pelted by basketballs and soccer balls, dodgeballs, and the coach becomes and the coach office becomes a weapon, and the whole time he's just chewing gum. And this is like non-reactive in a way, to, and hysterically. But the actor that played the coach, Marshall Bell, did a great job. And Chuck Russell's craziest sequence of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is the television Freddy, where there's the young victim watching television. Suddenly you have the two people, Cesar Gabor and Dick Cavett, who were generously enough to do filming that scene at the time. Freddy pops out of the TV and becomes part of the TV, rips the TV arms, and says the line, "Welcome to primetime, bitch." And obviously Chuck couldn't do it, and he's not Robert Englund, but with that line, it was a terrific and is often quoted by the fans of the third film. And Roberts said that that was his favorite line from the third film, and it was originally to be a clumsy line, and something along the line of, "Now you're going to be big time, Jennifer," and something like that, of course, added to do that idea of all that time in America. And everyone knows Freddy's always tossing the American culture back in the faces of his potential victims. At the time of America, the NBC National Broadcasting System motto was "Welcome to Primetime," much like must-see TV was in the Seinfeld era. And just sort of like it took the collective consciousness, everybody was watching television and kind of made into something. Freddy would flip right back on the kids, and Mr. Englund always thought of the films as being seen in theaters. But what he realized with hindsight now, talking to fans over the years, so many fans saw them with their parents, their siblings. They get scared. They tie steak knives to their fingers, scratching the windows late at night. Their father, maybe stepfather, would let them watch it when mom wouldn't let them watch it, or a divorced father on Sunday would let the kids watch the film. Mom wouldn't let them. So he gets feedbacks, and it's amazing to him to think of those fans going through those kind of phases and see it better than it ever looked before. So the next feature is called Insane Traupe, which is an interview with Wes Craven, and he talks about that in 1974 he went to go see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. After he had made Last House on the Left, he went to go see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and saw the film, and remember sitting in theater and thinking must have been made by a group of troupe of mad, insane people, that it was made by that, and he thinks it was a great realization. And because he realized people thought that's about him, Mr. Craven. And subsequent that he's always said, if you design a scary movie, first thing you have to fight that frightens you, that you have to be frightened, your audience, with yourself, they have to be frightened before they're frightened of the villain, and having to be frightened of the filmmaker, because the filmmaker has to be a person that cannot be predicted. They cannot predict what the next move that he or she is going to do next, and that he or she is going to cross all the forbidden barriers and all the kinds of the request of being in a horror movie as a film director. He thinks that really scaring the people and the audiences. So that was an intriguing moment with Mr. Craven. So yeah, that's gonna. I don't think I can find that anywhere. So yeah, you're gonna have to get that yourself. Now on to the next one. The next feature is called "The Problem with Sequels: Interview with Wes Craven," which is about 1 minute and 41 seconds in length. Mr. Craven talks about that in some ways, the story became more and more strained, and the problem with making sequels, he believes that every sequel suffers. That if you continue the story with the villain, and as the villain is the center story, which certainly became the paradigm of the Nightmare films, and simply introduce new set of victims every time, and becomes very quite inevitable, and no story of continuity or any sort. And the youth never continue with Freddy's youth or this or that, and stretched it thinner and thinner, and as it towards the end of the story, it becomes less and less recognizable and very germane in the original ideas. And that when he was asked to do a final Nightmare, or it was a new Nightmare, there were business reasons why he was that interested him. For instance, the pay was very good, and he was very able to negotiate points in the sequels that he had not been given before. So the reason why he should do it is that if he can't do it unless I feel again, and he brought it back up to the next level, a whole new level, and went back and looked at all the sequels, and he had a hard time following any sort of storyline or finding any consistencies of to build for a new one. And it was ironically kind of propulsions for jumping out of the film entirely. Alrighty, folks, so the next feature you're going to be looking at is Two Worlds, which is about a 2 minute and a 10-second interview with writer-director Wes Craven, talking about that every one of us in the series had somehow touched forever by the phenomenon of Nightmare on Elm Street. And Robert Englund will always be known as Freddy. Nancy and Heather would be interactable or indestructible, if you will. New Line had sort of been built on that. And when he came away from the conversation, and he called up Bob Shea and said, I think I want to make a movie about the phenomenon of the movie, and that the basis and jump outside of the story entirely, and also deal with the whole idea of censorship, whether horror films are good or bad, or whether they're causing people to do things, because it's been sort of growing instant with questions constantly asked for him, and he thinks everybody else is making horror films, says, "Aren't you afraid of your films causing this or cause this or that?" And his sense was, again, going all the way back to Greek mythology. There are a lot of great literatures that is about horror, and somehow a story about horror in sense of it exorcise it or give it a form in the same as Nancy, the final girl, dragging the hat out of her dream, and it's the beginning of being able to come to terms with it, and that if you were to prevent these stories, you are in a sense of being allowing something that is infreedable to sort of travel to the unpetted through to the unconsciousness, and because not to have a name, it would not have the shape to be given. So in any sense, we recognize it, so it becomes the essence of it, stopping the stories of Freddy, and really allowed Freddy to cross over into real life. And it was kind of a suitable warning to the censors on Mr. Craven's part to say, back off unless you want to experience a real thing, rather not seeing it in cinema, believe it or not. And it also seems to be freshenest ways to approach the kind of the 10th anniversary of the genre, which in fact that was almost to the month, and it was the 10th anniversary of the original Nightmare on Elm Street. So yeah, it's a very intriguing interview with Mr. Craven talking about this. So yeah, on to the next one, folks. So yeah, this 17-minute and 53-minute long feature, a very lot of stuff, including with director Sean S. Cunningham, talking about no more magic tricks. And then there's the campfire story. Oh my god, a whole lot of things. But you have one with the author of The Nightmare on Elm Street, Mark Edmondson, and talking about replications of the 18th century, and talking about whole shenanigans. Kids do what they see, that they're going to become like that person when they observe the behavior. And then talking about whole familiarities, about Oprah, and all that stuff. And very good examples, not so good examples, Destruction of the People. And then you have Clive Barker talking about the differences between the Nightmare movies and then with his design of Pinhead from Hellraiser. They both enjoy the pleasure and scaring their victims. That's what they do. That's what both Pinhead and Freddy have in common. And then talking about why we like Gothic, it's the taboos, the colorization of black, and the feel of it, the atmosphere. That's what people love about Goth. Or so. And if anybody that knows any friends or siblings who are Gothics, let me know in the comment section. And that I'm not going to go into. And there could have been an idea for a Freddy versus Pinhead. I'll leave you a link in the description box for Joe Blow. What the WTF happened in this unmade project. So yeah. And then you have Freddy's manic energy, talking about that he hears the victim scream, fearing. That's how he gets his powers from. Then creating characters lasting horror. And magic or no magic with Sean S. Cunningham, talking about the tricks, the illusions, how to do a horror movie. Monsters with personality, that thinking that they do have some, but in more very scary tone kind of way. And then Freddy as a sex machine? No, that's not how he would describe. So Robert Englund, but it's an interview with him in 1989, while after or before making of the fifth Nightmare on Elm Street. He refused to call the character a sex machine, which indeed is kind of insulting and very hurtful. That's not how it's described. Next up would be the campfire story. So yeah, in this one, Robert Englund, this is an interview from 1989. He talked about being the campfire tale. You got the hook man, the Chinese man, all sorts of it, the man with the hook for a hand. And suddenly the Nightmare on Elm Street films has become the campfire tale of the Grimm with two M's, like brothers. And that it's suddenly become, the Nightmare movies have become the campfire tales of their own ways. That's what it is. So yeah, and that's how it is in the collective imaginations to the fans and the audiences of this franchise. Even to this day, people still love it. So yeah, it is a very extensive interview, but I can't seem to find a link for this one. So you're gonna have to purchase it yourself, folks. So yeah, with all the accoutrements and the whole lot of special features in this, very extensive interview with these people, including, of course, Clive Barker. So enough chit-chat, folks. Let's see the picture quality. Like, right now. Let's go. So yeah, that's a whole lot of accoutrements of special features. And what do you guys think of the picture quality? If you have a Boss TV, BOSE TV, word of advice to those who have that. If you're planning to watch any movies on 4K, watch it with the lights off. If it's the Blu-ray as well, your choice. Leave the lights on or leave the lights off. But take advice from my pal and fellow YouTuber, Planet CHH. Watch it with the lights off. It's much better. So yeah, and you have the good qualities of the audio. Oh, I'm going to give it 9.5 out of 10. Or 10 out of 10 on all of them. Who cares? It's a must. To any fans of the Nightmare movies, including horror, it's a must. You got to get your paws in this collection. It's totally worth it. And yeah, and so folks, if you like content like this or any other content on this channel, please click the bell and the subscribe button to be notified about new uploads. Like the videos, always appreciate your thumbs ups. Have any opinion related to the contents? Comments down below. That's right, comments down below, folks. And also, I'm in the YouTube posts, same thing with the click on the subscribe button, and also click the bell to be notified of uploads, whether it be on my YouTube posts or my videos, and it's going to be posted at a certain time, so keep an eye on that, folks. And also, let's give a shout out to that thing of ours, TCF, to the visual media collectors, the watch collectors, toy collectors, autograph collectors, and all you collectors out there. Shouts to you all, cats and dogs. You're awesome. And let's give a shout out to my subscribers. You know who you all are. Shouts to you all. Heck. So yeah, folks. And it's definitely a must. So yeah, and also same thing on my YouTube post. You'll never know what's gonna pop up, so keep an eye on it daily and weekly. daily and weekly, folks. Keep an eye on it. You'll never know what's about to come up. So, y'all, this is Sparky Marky Mark signing off. Y'all take care. God bless you. Enjoy Thursday, y'all. And later.